Most men make a huge mistake when they try to understand a woman's feelings. They look for the obvious confession. They wait for her to say, "I like you." They expect obvious flirting, constant messages, or some dramatic romantic gesture. But what if she's doing the exact opposite? What if she actually does have feelings for you and is trying desperately not to show them? Because sometimes attraction doesn't make a woman move closer immediately. Sometimes it makes her hesitate. She becomes more careful with you. She watches what she says. She tries to act completely normal. She may even convince herself that you're just a friend. But here's the problem. The more someone tries to control an emotion, the harder it can become to control every little behavior connected to it. And that's where things get interesting, because her words might say it's nothing. Her behavior might quietly say something very different. She may look at you when she thinks you're not watching. She may remember things you barely remember telling her. She may suddenly become nervous when you get close. She may tease you, then become strangely quiet when the conversation becomes personal. She may create distance for a while, only to find another reason to reconnect. And one sign in particular can reveal that she's not simply being friendly. But before we get there, understand something important. None of these behaviors are magical proof that a woman is attracted to you. People are complicated. A shy person can behave differently from a confident person. A naturally affectionate woman can be warm with everyone. Someone can be nervous for reasons that have nothing to do with romance. So don't turn this into a game of decoding every movement. What matters is the pattern. What matters is whether several behaviors repeatedly appear around you. What matters is whether she invests in the connection. And what matters most is whether her behavior eventually becomes reciprocal. Because genuine attraction isn't about finding one secret signal. It's about recognizing when someone consistently treats your presence as emotionally significant. And if she's trying not to fall for you, the first thing you may notice is surprisingly simple. She starts paying attention to you when she doesn't need to. Think about that. Anyone can respond when you speak directly to them. But what happens when you aren't speaking to her? You're across the room, you're talking to someone else. You're focused on something completely unrelated. Does she occasionally look toward you? Does she notice when you arrive? Does she seem aware of where you are? And if you catch her looking, does she suddenly look away? That last part can be particularly interesting. Not because looking away automatically means attraction. It doesn't. But because someone who is emotionally curious about you may become more self-conscious when they realize you've noticed their attention. It's the difference between simply seeing someone and being aware that you're watching them. And sometimes that awareness creates a tiny moment of nervousness. She looks, you look back, she looks away, maybe she smiles, maybe she suddenly becomes interested in her phone. Maybe a few minutes later, it happens again. One glance means nothing. Repeated attention can mean more. And that's the first pattern to watch. But the second sign is even more revealing because it has nothing to do with looking. It has to do with finding reasons to interact. A woman who is trying to keep her feelings under control may tell herself she won't seek you out. Then somehow she finds herself talking to you anyway. Maybe she asks a question she could easily answer herself. Maybe she comments on something you're doing. Maybe she sends you something that reminds her of an old conversation. Maybe she walks over for no obvious reason. Maybe the conversation ends, and somehow another topic appears. This can happen because the conscious mind says, "Don't make this obvious," while another part of her simply wants another moment of connection. And that's where men sometimes misread the situation. They think the excuse is important. It isn't. The question may not matter. The reason she gives may not matter. What matters is that she created an opportunity to interact with you. But again, don't assume. Some people are naturally social. Some people talk to everyone. That's why you need to look for repeated, specific investment. Does she do this with everyone? Or does she seem to find more reasons to interact with you? Does she remember conversations? Does she continue them later? Does she make an effort to keep the connection alive? That's when the signal becomes more meaningful. And here's where the third sign appears. She remembers tiny things about you. Most people don't realize how revealing memory can be. You casually mention a restaurant you like. Weeks later, she remembers. You tell her about an important event. She asks how it went. You mention a problem at work. Later, she checks whether it worked out. You tell her something about your childhood. Months later, she brings it up. Why does that matter? Because attention creates memory. We don't remember every detail about every person we meet. Our minds prioritize information. And when someone becomes emotionally interesting, details about them can become easier to remember. Again, that doesn't automatically equal romantic attraction. But if she consistently remembers things about you while also seeking interaction and behaving differently around you, you're seeing a stronger pattern. And here's something even more interesting. Sometimes she'll remember something you forgot you told her. You'll say, "Wait, I told you that." And she'll say, "Yeah, you mentioned it before." That moment can reveal something simple. She was listening, and people don't always realize how powerful being genuinely listened to can feel, especially in a world where most conversations are shallow. When someone remembers the small things, it communicates, "You mattered enough for me to pay attention." And if she's trying not to fall for you, that level of attention may be one of the things she can't completely control. Now let's move to the fourth sign, and this one can be confusing. She becomes different around you. Not necessarily dramatically different. Sometimes it's subtle. Maybe she's confident with everyone else but slightly nervous around you. Maybe she jokes constantly with other people but becomes more careful with her words around you. Maybe she's normally relaxed but suddenly adjusts her hair or clothing when you approach. Maybe she becomes more playful. Maybe she becomes quieter. Maybe she seems unusually aware of how you're reacting to her. The important word is different. Don't compare her behavior to some universal definition of attraction. Compare her behavior around you with her normal behavior around other people. That's where the real information is. Imagine a woman who is naturally outgoing. She laughs with everyone. She talks to everyone. She touches people's arms when she speaks. Those behaviors don't necessarily mean anything romantic. But if she's normally confident and suddenly becomes slightly shy when you're near, that's a change. If she's normally serious but becomes playful around you, that's a change. If she normally keeps conversations short but somehow spends 20 minutes talking with you, that's a change. Attraction doesn't always create a completely new personality. Sometimes it simply creates small deviations from someone's normal behavior. And those deviations can be surprisingly revealing. But here's where things get complicated. Sometimes she may become distant. And this is the fifth sign that men often misunderstand. She gets close, then pulls back. She seems interested, then becomes quiet. She talks to you for an hour, then disappears for a while. You have an amazing interaction, and afterward, she acts almost like nothing happened. What is going on? There are many possibilities. Maybe she's not interested. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she's uncertain. Maybe she's protecting herself. Or maybe she felt something during the interaction that made her uncomfortable with how quickly the connection was developing. That's why mixed signals should never automatically be interpreted as hidden attraction. But if you notice a consistent pattern where she creates distance and then returns on her own, that's worth paying attention to. Because someone who is trying to control their feelings may occasionally create distance to regain emotional control. She tells herself, I need to stop thinking about him. She becomes less available. She focuses on other things. And then she finds another reason to talk to you, another question, another message, another conversation, another little moment. That doesn't prove anything by itself, but the cycle can be revealing. Closeness, distance, return, closeness, distance, return. If that pattern continues alongside the other signs, it may indicate emotional conflict. And this is where you need maturity. Don't chase her during the distance. Don't send 10 messages. Don't demand an explanation. Don't say, why are you acting weird? Give her room, because if she genuinely needs space, respecting it is the right thing to do. And if she returns because she wants connection, she will have the freedom to choose that herself. That brings us to the sixth sign. She becomes unusually interested in your opinion of her. This can happen in very subtle ways. She asks, do you like this? Which one looks better? What do you think about this? She may casually mention something she changed. She may remember a compliment you gave her. She may seem particularly pleased when you notice something about her. Again, don't overinterpret, but consider the psychology. The opinions of strangers usually don't affect us very deeply. But when someone becomes emotionally important, their perception begins to matter. You may notice yourself doing the same thing. If you don't care about someone, their opinion of your appearance probably doesn't occupy much space in your mind. But if you care what they think, suddenly their reaction matters. That's why this behavior can be interesting. Not because asking your opinion proves attraction, but because repeated concern about your specific opinion can indicate that your perception has gained emotional weight. And if she is already showing the other signs, that weight becomes even more meaningful. But now comes the seventh sign. And this one is the most important. She starts making space for you in her life. This is where attraction moves beyond body language, beyond glances, beyond nervousness, beyond playful conversations. Because eventually, genuine interest requires investment. She makes time, she initiates, she follows up, she remembers, she includes you. She finds opportunities to see you. She may not say, I want you in my life, but her choices begin communicating it. And this is the difference between fantasy and reality. A person can flirt without wanting a relationship. A person can enjoy attention without being emotionally invested. A person can find you attractive and still not want anything serious. But when someone repeatedly makes room for you, that's different. Because time is valuable, attention is valuable, emotional energy is valuable. And people don't consistently spend those things on someone who means nothing to them. That's why investment is often more important than body language. If she looks at you but never makes time for you, don't build a story around the looks. If she compliments you but never wants to know you, don't assume there's a deeper connection. If she enjoys your attention but never gives any back, recognize the imbalance. But if she consistently chooses to reconnect, if she remembers, if she initiates, if she makes time, if she seems emotionally affected by your presence, then there may be something worth exploring. And here's the most important part. Don't try to catch her feelings. Don't say, I know you're falling for me. Don't use her vulnerability against her. Don't make her feel embarrassed for having feelings. If she's genuinely struggling with attraction, the safest thing you can offer is emotional clarity. Let her know where you stand without demanding that she immediately match you. That's what mature confidence looks like. You can say, I really enjoy spending time with you. You can show interest. You can ask her out. You can communicate. But you also give her the freedom to say yes or no. That's important. Because the goal isn't to get a woman to admit she has feelings. The goal is to discover whether those feelings are mutual, and there's a massive difference. One is about control. The other is about connection. Now think about why a woman might fight her feelings in the first place. Maybe she's been hurt. Maybe she's afraid of losing independence. Maybe she wasn't expecting to meet someone. Maybe she doesn't want another relationship. Maybe she thinks you're unavailable. Maybe she doesn't know what you want. Maybe the attraction itself surprises her. And sometimes the strongest feelings are the ones that make us uncomfortable. Because feelings create risk. If she doesn't care, she has nothing to lose. But if she starts caring, suddenly rejection matters. Suddenly vulnerability matters. Suddenly the possibility of getting hurt becomes real. That's why someone can sometimes behave strangely around a person they genuinely like. Not because they don't know what they want, but because they know exactly what they might want, and they're afraid of what could happen if they admit it. And if you've reached that stage with someone, don't make the mistake of trying to increase the pressure. Create safety, be consistent, be honest, let your actions match your words, don't play games, don't disappear just to make her chase you. Don't intentionally create jealousy, don't pretend not to care. Those tactics may create temporary emotional reactions, but they don't create healthy intimacy. If you want a real relationship, build something real. Because the woman who is trying not to fall for you doesn't need another emotional roller coaster. She needs clarity, and so do you. Now here's the part that many men over 55 need to hear. You don't need to spend the rest of your life trying to decode women. You don't need to become an expert in every tiny movement. And you certainly don't need to chase someone who isn't giving you anything back. At this stage of life, your greatest advantage isn't pretending to be younger. It's becoming more grounded. You have experience, you've made mistakes, you've learned what matters. You know that chemistry alone doesn't build a lasting relationship. You know that attraction without respect eventually becomes exhausting. You know that attention without consistency means very little. So look for the woman who doesn't just make you wonder whether she likes you. Look for the woman who eventually makes her interest easier to understand. Look for reciprocity, look for effort, look for honesty, look for emotional availability, because the healthiest attraction isn't a puzzle that one person has to solve. It's a connection that two people gradually create. And perhaps that's the real meaning behind all 7 signs. She watches you, she finds reasons to talk, she remembers, she behaves differently, she sometimes pulls away. She cares about your opinion, and eventually she makes space for you. None of those signs alone can tell you what she feels. But together, they may reveal something more powerful. You have become emotionally significant to her. And if she's been trying to fight that feeling, there may come a moment when she simply can't maintain the distance anymore. Not because you pressured her, not because you manipulated her, not because you found some secret psychological trick, but because genuine connection became stronger than her fear of it. That's when you stop looking for signs. Because the relationship itself starts becoming the sign. She chooses your company. She communicates. She opens up. She makes time. She lets you see the parts of her she normally protects. And eventually, she may stop fighting the feeling altogether. But here's the final truth. The goal isn't to make someone fall for you. The goal is to become emotionally mature enough to recognize when someone is choosing you freely. Because anyone can chase attention, anyone can create tension, anyone can play games, but it takes real strength to build trust, to respect boundaries, to remain calm when you're uncertain, to communicate honestly, and to walk away when the connection isn't mutual. So if a woman seems to be fighting her feelings for you, don't rush to expose her. Don't force the moment. Don't make her feel guilty for being uncertain. Give the connection room to breathe. Watch what she consistently chooses. And let her actions speak over time, because one glance can be accidental. One smile can be friendly. One touch can mean nothing, but repeated attention, repeated effort, repeated curiosity, and repeated choice, that's different. And when a woman keeps choosing to come back to you even when she has every opportunity to walk away, that's when you should pay attention. Not because you've won her, but because something much more meaningful may be happening. Two people may be discovering that the connection between them is becoming harder to ignore. And sometimes the person fighting the hardest not to fault is the person who already knows exactly how deeply they're beginning to feel.